Chuck Brown was the godfather of go-go, but do you know how go-go got started in Virginia? Stay tuned for the next edition of Inside Scoop. Well, today we have a very special guest, Elwood Jones, and we're going to get into the history of go-go and how it started in Virginia and where it stands today. So, Wood, how you doing?
Doing good, thank you.
I understand that you are one of the co-founders of the go-go movement in Virginia and one of the co-founders of one of the prominent bands that started in Virginia. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, Elwood Jones grew up here in Alexandria, Virginia, Cameron Valley. Went to T.C. Williams High School. I started playing music when I was 13, well actually 12 years old. Started playing professionally when I was 13 with my father, playing in bands all over the place. And went to T.C. Williams High School, played jazz band, did a lot of R&B and jazz, all kinds of different music. Actually played the orchestra as well. We started a band called Ovation Band, really kind of out of an R&B band in the early 80s. So we started in 1980.
Okay, so when you say we...
Yes, yeah, Maurice Tills and myself started the band. We were doing an R&B band called Star Child first.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we heard Rare Essence and of course Chuck Brown and different groups like that in DC. And we had decided, we love R&B, we're musicians, we love jazz, but it's something about go-go that we just wanted to bring that to Alexandria, Virginia.
Okay, so can you tell me a little bit how the band was started, the name of the band?
Yeah, sure. Well, before we were Ovation Band, it was Maurice Tills, myself, Ron Boone, and Demetrius Butler was actually in the band during that time too. And we decided on the basketball court, Maurice Tills and myself, after doing a couple parties, we were doing parties for free, and in Alexandria, Virginia, Maurice Tills and I, we were on the basketball court, hadn't had a name for the band, and said, hey, what should we name this band? And we started thinking through different names, and that name doesn't jam band, that sounds stupid. But then all of a sudden we said, well, what do we want people to do? We want people to party. We want people to be excited. We want people to stand up and applaud and us like an ovation. And so we were like a standing ovation. Boom, there it was, Ovation Band. And so Maurice Tills and I came up with that idea on the basketball court on Duke Street in Alexandria.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about the members of the band?
Sure.
And what were some of the highlights?
Well, the band started with, of course, with Maurice Tills and myself, and then, of course, we brought on Ron Boone was with us back in that day. We actually had a guitar player by the name of Benny Paul. I have no idea where he's at right now. But then we brought in Funky Jeff as our guitar player. Eventually brought in Jasper Bates, who's affectionately known as Mr. Wiggles. Brought in Big Bill on trombone. Buddha played trumpet. And then, Don Green, I almost forgot about Donnie. Yeah, Don, I think that was his last name, but Donnie played sax. So that was the early band, and then we eventually got Tricky Rick, Rick Hopkins. We ended up getting Rick Wanza, Loose Booty. And so yeah, that was the band in the early days. Chap played keyboards, and then, of course, I don't want to forget Pluky, who was our front man. Pluky, and then Strolin Olin was with us for a while, and we had a couple other members, Lonnie on sax from Bladensburg, and so that was the band.
Okay, so can you tell us like some of the highlights of playing with Ovation?
Sure.
Some of the really good times.
Yeah, well, I mean, the times I remember was like we played at the Howard Theater, like on Friday nights, opened up for Essence, we did the Moonlight Inn, we did Club LeBaron. Played at the Coliseum with Chuck Brown, Rare Essence, EU, Trouble Funk. So, I mean, we played with a lot of bands, but I think probably more than anything, just playing for our hometown was big, just playing at all the rec centers and doing the block parties and stuff like that.
It was huge.
Yeah,
it was huge.
That was big for us.
Okay, we know that like most bands go through hard times. Can you elaborate on why you think that Ovation never got its just due?
Sure. So like the hard times, probably one of the reasons why we never got our just due, I think partly because our our management changed. We had Pinky Slate was our manager in the early days, and then we ended up bringing in some other guys. By the way, give much props to Pinky. Pinky really helped us in those early days because we didn't really know what we were doing. We got a few gigs in the early days, but once Pinky came in, he kind of was our strength, our stability. I was young, and so here's a guy who comes in and makes us feel good about ourselves and kind of handle the business part. So, you know, the controversy really kind of came in when Pinky kind of allowed some other people to come in and be a part. So they had decided that they wanted to go a different direction than the band, and definitely a different direction than the person who started the band, or the people who started the band, which was Maurice Tills and myself.
Is that what ended the relationship with Ovation, or did that contribute in any way?
Yeah, well, I mean, the big controversy, a lot of people ask, like, Elwood, how is it that, you know, you was with Ovation Band and you ended up going to Shady Groove? What happened to that? And so the true story about that is I actually got booted out of the band. Like, they kicked me out of my own band. I'm mad about that now. Actually,
I would be mad, but, you know.
Actually, you know, and I was disappointed because it was
hurt more so.
Yeah.
That was your baby.
It was my baby. It was my baby. It was like a first love. You know, we started that, but the beauty of it, I think all things work, you know, for a purpose. And so when I left Ovation Band, it ended up with Shady Groove, and so that.
Okay,
Yeah,
so mentioning Shady Groove, in our next section we're going to get into what attracted Elwood to Shady Groove, and we're going to start that up when we get back. Please come back and join us. Welcome back to Inside Scoop. We're talking to our very special guest, Elwood Jones, and we're about to get into his relationship with Shady Groove Band. So, Wood, can you tell us a little bit about what attracted you to Shady Groove? That seems to be a very unique name.
Right.
Give us some history on that.
Right. Well, Shady Groove was a real unique band. I mean, they had what I call the big three. They were a really funky band. They had Willie, we called him Goodfoot, on drums, Willie Smith, P-Funk, Paul Ward on Congoes, who to me is one of the funkiest Congo players ever. And then of course they had Smooth Man Tony. And it was something about the chemistry of that band that at least that part of the band really worked. And so I decided that, and they decided, really, they were like, hey, we could use a guy like you who has some musical experience to come in and kind of help shape the band. Essentially, they weren't doing a lot of shows at the time.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay,
So it felt like a good fit.
Yeah, but they were an overnight sensation, and they actually landed a recording contract. Can you tell me if you were instrumental in helping them reach that level?
Right. So sure. Well, I mean, we had how that started was we did a show down at Gum Springs, and we came out with this song called "Hey Everybody, How You Feel Tonight." So that was the party joint, which everybody's doing that song now.
Yeah.
Even to this day, people still do that. But we did that, and somebody heard us down there. But even before that, they were a little confused because they actually thought I was with Ovation Band, because Ovation Band was on that show. So they called me up and said, hey, we want to get Ovation Band in the studio to do this song. And I was like, hey, I'm not with Ovation Band, I'm with Shady Groove. And so that really was the deal. They were asking for Ovation Band, and of course I went down. They said, look, we'll give Shady Groove one shot. We don't even know who they are. You know, the guy who's actually the exec of the project said, I've never even heard of Shady Groove. I've heard of Ovation Band. And so they said, we'll give you one shot. We went to the studio, and when we warmed up, like 10-minute warm up, and they called us out and said, hey man, we really love what y'all doing. Let's do this. So that's how the Shady Groove thing started.
Okay, two bands, one common denominator. Can you tell me, or
What,
tell
the
us,
common denominator?
you are the common denominator. Can you let us know, like, what is your relationship now with the band members?
Right.
Or what would you like people to take from this interview as far as where you stand and where you are as far as both bands are concerned?
Well, I mean, I think with Ovation Band, when I left there, you know, I think some of those guys really wanted me to come back. Obviously, at the time I was with Shady Groove, we had a hit record out, and that wasn't the time to go back to Ovation Band. And then my loyalties was with Shady Groove at the time. So things kind of ended a little sour with Ovation, but I think over years we've kind of rekindled, our friendship for one another. I think with Shady Groove, even most of the band members the same. I had a chance to come together with those guys and talk to them. I had traveled to Minnesota and did some traveling around doing music, and when I came back 10 years ago, we came back together and talk things out.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've gone through both bands, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss the 30-year reunion and what's next with Elwood. So when we discussed some of the highlights you had with Ovation, what were some of the highlights you experienced when playing with Shady Groove?
With Shady Groove?
Yes.
Well, I mean, there are so many highlights. I remember just being in the studio with those guys. We had a chance to record even with some other groups, some other guys like Too Tall Steve, who was with EU, CJ Jones. So I think the studio experience is probably the highlight for me. Of course, we had a chance to play with Air Raid and EU and a bunch of different groups, and it was really, honestly though, it was too short-lived. We probably, the sad thing about almost anybody who has overnight success,
right,
is sometimes it goes to your head, right? And you think you're a star, and so it ended too soon. Yeah, to get great memories. We had some memories, but I just think it ended way too soon.
Okay, so I just want to discuss the 30-year reunion.
Yeah.
I played a part of it. It was one of the best events that I have ever participated in, that I've ever been to. When we come back, we're going to jump right into that and see exactly how that took off. Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm Sonia Patrice, and we're still here with my special guest, Elwood Jones. So Elwood, 30-year reunion.
Yeah.
That was your baby.
It was.
How was the idea born?
Well, the idea was born. There was many attempts to try to get a reunion. I remember the 10-year reunion didn't go too well. Then I think they tried a couple different reunions and it didn't work well. My goal for that one was just to bring Alexandria together one more time and just kind of reminisce on the old days, And so you got two of the hottest bands out of Alexandria, Virginia, the first go-go band in Virginia, and then of course the #1 recording band, Shady Groove in Virginia, on one show. And so
And it was a show.
It was a show. It was incredible. It was a packed house. It was incredible. It was like a reunion.
A family reunion.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
And so wonderful time. DC was represented there, Maryland. We had Air Raid came
and showed. A lot of the Air Raid band members.
Yeah, came to support.
Prophecy.
Prophecy. Yeah. So it was
all in the house.
Yeah, and so it was an incredible time. I think the idea for that was simply just to bring us all back together again for one more big show. So that's
Okay. So for one more big show.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you think there will be a time and a place where both bands will come together again?
Well, I don't know about that, but I could never say never.
Right.
I think one of the things I think it needs to be said is that a lot of times I think almost everybody feels like they got one more shot, right? Like boxers, they like,
right.
I got one more shot. Just let me do it one more time. I'm in the prime of my life. You 50 years old, but you're in the prime of your life. And I just think, we had our time, we had our season. If the right situation came back up and we would do something again, that would be, we'll see.
Well, you know what? If you don't do anything again, that show was so great, you can leave it right there. And on that note, I just want to personally thank you for making that happen and pioneering the movement in Virginia. It was fun. I participated in it since I was like 13. It was great. You're wonderful. And all that being said, I want to know what's next for you musically. What do you find yourself doing?
Well, I think one of the things that we did was we did that show, and we were like, well, we weren't totally satisfied with all the recording of it, so we went back and did a remix of it, and you've actually heard some of it.
And it's actually good.
Yeah, it's banging. I've had some people.
I was like this in the car.
Yeah, so it's banging. It's re-edited, remastered, remixed. It's embellished some, but it's banging. It's a banging project. So we got both Shady Groove and Ovation Band full CD and DVDs, and so it'll be coming out soon. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So more about you personally. What are you
yeah.
doing?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot going on musically. I mean, I've been working with a couple different people. One of my main group is a group called Urban Street Level, and so we're actually in September. We're going to be doing a live recording, so we're excited about that. I mean, that's really my love now. I mean, things are a little different for me now, and there's a big picture. I would love to come back on the show and talk about that sometime if you invite me back.
I will invite you back. So the music that you're doing now and the music from Ovation and Shady Group, the remix tape, where can people find that?
You can go to iTunes, you can go to CD Baby, and both of those you can find it. So pretty much on iTunes. There's some local shops that can, provide it for you. So you can contact me through Facebook, and we can make sure you get that.
So Elwood, I would like to really thank you for taking us back in history, bringing us up to date on how all the go-go movement came about in Virginia, and just to really sincerely thank you for all that you've done for Virginia and the go-go movement.
Thank you. Sonia, I want to thank you. Thanks for this interview. Thanks for all the hard work you and a lot of the committee for that reunion. I'm not going to say names because I'll mess it all up, but I want to thank you for all the work that you put in.
You are definitely
making that a success.
Mr. Wiggle, Wiggles, Wiggle, Mr. Wiggle on down. Mr. Wiggle, Wiggle, on the Wiggles, Mr. Wiggle on down. Y'all remember that joint? One more time. Mr. Wiggle, Wiggle, Wiggle.
So well, thank you for taking us back in history and sharing a lot of the highlights of your career with both Ovation and Shady Groove. I am Sonia Patrice, and again we would like to thank Elwood for joining us, giving us the inside scoop. I hope you will join us again on the next edition of Inside Scoop. Stay tuned for bigger and better things. Because we get to edit.